Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, and this is the channel where we break down all the latest movies, new game releases, TV shows and comic books. With It Chapter 2 now out for release digitally in the US, it's time to revisit one of my old videos to bring it up to date with all of the Pennywise appearances across the two films. It's crazy the amount of times that the character pops up in the background of a scene, and hopefully this video will make you go back and rewatch the movies with a new appreciation for just how much work the creative team put into them. If you've already seen the first video I made and just want to skip to It Chapter 2, then I'll leave that time coded in the description, but I've also dropped in a couple of additions for the first movie too, if you want to stick around. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to watch either of the films yet and don't want anything ruined, then I highly suggest that you turn off now. With that out of the way, I just want to give a huge thank you for clicking this video. Now let's get into our breakdown of every time that Pennywise was hidden away in the background of a scene. Okay, so the very first appearance of Pennywise actually comes within 5 minutes of It Chapter 1. This happens way before Georgie had his fateful run-in with the killer clown in the sewers, and it starts the movie off with one of the creepiest things that I've ever seen. As Georgie makes his way down into the basement, he passes several impressions of Pennywise and even almost bumps into the character directly when making his way down the stairs to the bottom part of the house. It also looks like Pennywise may be a painter and decorator on the side, as in Georgie and Bill's house there are several small images of the character ingrained into the wallpaper. Anyway, just before Georgie goes down the steps into the basement, in a blink and you'll miss it moment that roughly takes place over about 2 frames, you may also notice his small shiny eyes watching the young boy at the top of the stairs as he descends the flight of steps. Whilst he also appears later in the scene hiding under the stairs, this is the first of many examples that shows that he's always one step behind his prey, constantly stalking them and waiting for the perfect moment to attack. Who knows how long he actually followed Georgie for during this scene, but it's enough to give you goosebumps as you realise that once Pennywise has its eyes on you, it's very difficult to get away. Up next is the library scene with Ben, in which there are several minor appearances by Pennywise before he makes his final play and tries to attack the character in the basement of the building. I guess the rule is, if there's a killer clown after you, just don't go down the stairs anywhere. Anyway, the first one comes in the form of the creepy librarian that slowly watches Ben as he reads about the history of Derry. Throughout the scene, the mysterious librarian creepily stares at him, smiling as he digs deeper into what exactly may be going on in the town. It's a really haunting scene, and there's something that I didn't even pick up on in my first couple of watches, though the more you focus on the background of the scene, the more you realise that Pennywise is slowly making his play. I noticed comments last time of people saying it was just a woman doing her job, but look at her expression, and also yeah, she's standing in the exact same position that the balloon appears in the next shot that leads Ben to go down into the basement, which cements for me that the character is indeed taking on her form. Another blink and you'll miss it moment that also happens in this scene is when Ben is flicking through the book, and in a small frame that flies by so fast you have to screenshot it in order to see it, you'll see the children's Easter egg hunt that infamously ended in disaster. In the top corner of the photo when paused, you'll notice a blurry vision of Pennywise that shows he was the cause behind the massacre and has been in the town at several key points. As we know from It and Ben's research, Pennywise is often at the centre of many famous disasters in Derry, and this confirms that he was indeed behind the many deaths in the Easter egg hunt. Soon after this scene, Ben is caught by Henry Bowers and we see a balloon pop up in the back window of a car. During the attack he calls out for help, which goes completely unnoticed. This shows that Pennywise has a hold over the adults in Derry and is physically controlling them so that they will appear nonchalant to any trouble that the children in the area get into. This is why Beverly's father can't see the blood in the bathroom, and why in one of the film's many deleted scenes, Bill's father is unable to see that the basement is flooded after Bill's encounter with Georgie and Pennywise down there. It's also why no one ever really leaves Derry, and the fact that the losers do shows that they are highly driven people, which plays into why they all go on to have successful careers. Though the one in the car is rather obvious, it adds a nice amount of subtext to the city and definitely lets you know that Pennywise has the ability to reach into pretty much every aspect of the town. The next one comes during the scene in which the Losers Club try and help Ben with his cuts. The characters are all leaning up against a wall with graffiti behind them, which seems innocuous enough until, during the scene, Pennywise's face appears in the markings watching them. The face definitely isn't there earlier in the scene, so it's safe to say that this has been done with something else other than a spray can. It's an awesome little addition that once again cements just how able Pennywise is with hunting his prey. He can follow them wherever he wants to, and this makes him infinitely more terrifying. We see this wall once more in It Chapter 2 when Bill rides past it on his bike, and Pennywise is still ingrained in it, showing that the character is very hard to get rid of. Up next is a rather obvious one, but I thought I'd include it just in case you missed it. During the scene in which the Losers Club all admit that they're afraid of something, we can see a clown on the stage in the background staring at the group, and when Richie says that he hates clowns, the figure reaches out menacingly to him with a balloon and from this point on just stares at him. Yep, that's Pennywise alright, and this scene is given more weight in It Chapter 2, as it's the same location that Pennywise uses to scare Richie. Beverly also has a doll in her home that looks similar to Pennywise, and the character also makes an appearance in the TV show that seems to be plastered across every television screen in Derry. Pennywise appears towards the end of the movie on the show, taunting Henry to kill his own father, but if you go back and watch the movie, you may notice that this show also appears in the rest of the film on almost every TV screen that we see. Firstly, Eddie's mother is sat watching it when the children go out, and later when Beverly sneaks past her father, he too's also got it on. If you listen to the voice on the TV very carefully, you can hear it encouraging kids to go down to the sewers, which as we know is a main hunting ground for Pennywise. This is basically just another way that it slowly seeps into the consciousness of the town, and why so many kids end up going to the sewers to play. You might also notice that sitting next to the presenter are the missing children from Derry, who all have severe wounds in their body that probably indicate the brutal way that Pennywise killed them. This show just exemplifies that Pennywise is psychically pushing it into the townspeople's minds, as we see Beverly sneak past it once, and then when she goes past it again, the TV is just playing static. Yikes. On the way to the old house on Neobolt Street, before they enter we can also see a bottle with Bob Gray on it, and this is a callback to Pennywise, who famously used the moniker. Bob Gray is a reference to the serial killer Albert Fish, who too used the pseudonym when carrying out his killings, which involved kidnapping and cannibalism. The final one for the first film comes in the house on Neobolt Street itself, in which Richie becomes trapped in a room full of dolls. Not only is there one that resembles the original It portrayed by Tim Curry in the 1990s miniseries, there's also one that looks like Pennywise on the right hand side. Both sides of the room show the history of Pennywise, and it showcases that the character was watching Richie far before he jumped out of the coffin to attack him. Anyway, that's all of the ones for It Chapter 1, so let's move on to the next film. The first one we see in It Chapter 2 is during the introductory logos, in which we can see the deadlights floating around the Warner Brothers and New Line logo, which lets us know that these will be major parts of the film. This is Pennywise's true form, and it's awesome that we kickstart the film with a nod towards the creature's real appearance. Another brilliant thing that It Chapter 2 does that the prior film didn't is that it ingrains the symbolism of Pennywise into several aspects of the town. The parade is littered with red balloons, and there's a huge mass of them that appear under the bridge after Adrian is attacked. This shot is then mirrored slightly later on when the girl leaves the bleachers, as many of the members of the crowd wear red hats, and due to their positioning they almost look like balloons arching down. A red balloon also pops up behind Adrian at the carnival before he's attacked, and the actor who plays Chris Unwin, who pretty much instigates the entire thing, is played by Katie Lundman. Now this is a callback to the first film, as Katie also played the part of Betty Ripsum, who was one of Pennywise's most famous victims. This recasting was done intentionally, as in Derry it is theorized that those who die horrible deaths at the hands of Pennywise don't get to go on to an afterlife. Instead, their doomed spirits remain in the town, being reincarnated into new people that then go on to lead hateful lives. Mike mentions that it's like an echo, bouncing back every 27 years, and for those who don't know, in the book, Chris Unwin was sentenced to prison after the attack, having his life ended in some ways around about the same time that Betty had hers. Anyway, this is not the only recasting either, as Eddie's wife is also played by the same actress that played his mother in the first film. This was put in place to show that Eddie did literally marry his mother in some ways, and there's also a big part in the book that jokes about how similar his wife and mother are. Other cameos include Stephen King and the director of the film, Andy Muschietti, who appears behind Eddie during his trip to the pharmacy. Anyway, back to Pennywise appearances, and in Beverly's home we see her run past a large painting of her and her husband Tom Rogan. Over Tom's shoulder you can see an almost shadowy form of Pennywise controlling him. Pennywise could have corrupted Tom over the decades, and this has led him to abusing Beverly similar to how her father did. It could also be a reference to the source material and 90s adaptation in which Pennywise controls Tom and gets him to kidnap Bill's wife and bring her to his lair as a hostage. Either way, it's a really creepy image that reminds us that you can't escape Derry no matter how much you try to get away or forget. When we are introduced to Henry Bowers, we can also see in his room images of Pennywise on the wall, most notably a red balloon which shows that he never really got his childhood out of his head. Now, I did see a lot of comments on the last video of people saying that Pennywise walks behind the fish tank during the restaurant scene, but I'm sorry everyone, I've watched it about 5 times and still can't see it. Anyway, the next appearance is at the bleachers, and Pennywise pops up just before he makes his attack on the young girl. Similar to his move on Georgie in the first film, we can see it just before it makes its attack, sitting and hiding in the background as the girl chases the firefly. The next major one we see appears during Mike's vision of how to carry out the ritual of Chud. When viewing how it came to Derry, we can see a form of Pennywise standing behind Mike, mimicking his movements, and also in the scene we see the original form that it used to attack the Native Americans in the area, which was a giant bird and a huge beast. One of the forms for a split second looks like the original spider creature that is seen at the end of the 1990s miniseries, and in Mike's room there's actually a poster of Pennywise on it which is promoting the Derry Canal Days. There's no reason Mike would want to have this image up of the thing that scared him the most throughout his entire life, so I have a sneaking suspicion that Pennywise put it there himself. Now, what's most important about this ritual of Chud scene is that it turns out in the film that this does not defeat Pennywise. The fact that we can see Pennywise controlling Mike at one point makes me think that he deliberately did this to trick the character into thinking that he had a way to destroy him. It's quite a smart move as it gets all of the Losers Club back together again, and had they not been scared of the character, he would have likely defeated them. So this entire ritual of Chud scene has a double meaning to it. The next one is pretty obvious and was shown in the teaser trailer for the film. This is Bob Gray, who in the scene we discover was a victim and alter ego that Pennywise adopted at the start of the prior century in Derry. This callback to the bottle from the previous movie is pretty nice, and there's also some hints that Pennywise is in the room just before Beverly enters it, including the door which says Marsh before it changes to Kirsch, and when Beverly knocks, Bill Skarsgård's voice is the one that can be heard answering it. This shows that Pennywise probably made its play at the last second and jumped there, creating the illusion just before Beverly knocked. The old woman also pops her head around the corner several times and does a walk like when you get out of the shower without a towel. When Richie revisits the arcade, we can see a torn poster behind him that has the words "it" ripped into it, and when the character goes outside he gets past a funeral program that not only has his face on the front but also Pennywise's on the back. It's another blink and you'll miss it moment that lasts about a frame, but it's a great little Easter egg that I hope some of you seen. When Ben revisits the school, we also get a hint that Pennywise is in fact using Beverly's form, as its shadow appears in front of the projector before there is seemingly a fake out and we see that it's just Bev. In hindsight, we know that this was indeed the character, popping up to unnerve him before quickly changing its form to try and get Ben to let his guard down, and even when we go back to the shadow after we see it's Bev, it still looks exactly like Pennywise does. I guess you should never go to summer school, or whenever this was that Ben attended, whilst also fighting the creature, making friends, and building an underground bunker. Yeah, some of these retcons don't work. Anyway, when Bill chases the boy that now lives in his old house at the fun fair in order to save him from the snatch of the killer clown, we can see several elements of the fun house that feature the 1990s miniseries Pennywise played by Tim Curry. They're not your typical punching bag either, as they almost knock Bill off his feet when banging into them, and this shows that Pennywise always packs a punch. Also, before Bill finally catches up to the kid, Pennywise walks behind him at several points and even appears right over his shoulder, menacingly looking at the character. It's pretty scary, and this scene definitely holds a lot more weight knowing that Pennywise was stalking him the entire time throughout the House of Mirrors. Yeah, I'm never going into a House of Mirrors again. And finally, at the end of the movie, when Beverly is in the bathroom, against the wall we can see a graffiti version of Pennywise pressed into the stall. We can see from the walls that this isn't the same stall as the first film, so it looks like a lot of the graffiti was later added by the creature in order to leave an impression. The crudely drawn kids version of the character lets you know that Pennywise will always be a part of Derry and their childhood one way or another, and it's a nice little squiggle that holds a lot more weight to it than a simple drawing. We can also see the words "big is what it seems," which, yeah, reread it, big is what it seems, which of course plays into the ending of the movie, in which the characters overcome Pennywise by showing that they are mentally stronger than it. The final Easter egg is a nod to Maturin, the giant space turtle that is basically the opposite of Pennywise, that in the book helps the Losers Club defeat the character by guiding them psychically. There's a lot of turtle references throughout both movies, but yeah, that's definitely for another video. And that's every time that I notice Pennywise popping up in the background of a scene in both films. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these. Did you notice them, and have you spotted any more? Comment below and let me know, and I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who checked out my breakdown of the first film, as I still can't believe that it's on 8 million views. I massively appreciate all the support on the channel, and yeah, it just means a lot, so thank you very much. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our breakdown of all the upcoming Spider-Verse movies that we know, which will be linked after this. If you want to come chat to me after the video, then follow me on Twitter at DefinitionYT, or head over to my Discord server, which will be linked in the description below. We drop videos on there early, so if you want to see stuff before anyone else, then that's the best place to be. It's free to join and we have an awesome community, so hopefully I see you over there very soon. We're also giving away a free copy of the Marvel Phase 3 Part 2 box set on Blu-ray, which contains Black Panther, Infinity War, Endgame, Captain Marvel and more, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts on the Black Widow trailer in the comments section below. The winner's going to be chosen on the 15th of December, and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. This is the channel for people who are mad into movies, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. I've been Definition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.